The Panthers' winning streak came to an end in Washington as the Caps' depth came through in another tightly contested game between two of the top teams in the East.
You're Locked On Panthers, your daily podcast on the Florida Panthers. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
And welcome into this Wednesday, February 5th edition of the Locked On Florida Panthers podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, where it's your team every day. Thank you for making the Locked On Florida Panthers podcast your first listen of the day. I'm Armando Velez from the Hockey News. You can follow me on X and Blue Sky at MondoMan12. Follow the show account on X and Instagram at @LO_FLA Panthers and on Blue Sky at LOFLA Panthers. You can follow the podcast anywhere you listen to podcasts and on YouTube. And if you are on the YouTube channel, make sure to press that like button. And shout out to every day you should come back here and get your daily Florida Panthers fix. Today's episode is brought to you by Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNHL for $20 off your first purchase. And you could do that all on Game Time. So the Florida Panthers lose to the Washington Capitals by a final score of 6-3 in a game which they never led. They trailed the whole time. It was playing a game of catch up for the Panthers, but the Panthers playing a game of catch up for them. But even though they were trailing at times, the Panthers really felt like they had a lot of control in the game. For them, the tone was set by the top two lines for them. And why you see a 6-3 score for this one is, once again, just like the first matchup between these two teams, the Washington Capitals get two empty net goals at the end of the game to make the game a larger difference than it actually was for this one, if based on the gameplay. And one of those empty net goals included Alexander Ovechkin's 25th goal of the season. Now 19 straight 25 goal seasons for Ovi, as now he is 17 goals away from breaking Wayne Gretzky's record for himself to get the record. But the Panthers, once again, it was the top two lines setting the tone for the Panthers, back and forth, and quick responses multiple times by the Florida Panthers for them. Like we mentioned at the top, the depth scoring for the Washington Capitals there. Two of the goals in the game came from the fourth line for the Capitals, Andrew Mangiapane in the first period, and then Nic Dowd in the third period, which we'll discuss a lot about Nic Dowd in this one, especially if you watch the game live. You know what I'm talking about here for them. But Panthers, quick responses most of the time in this one. 5 minutes later, after Mangiapane scores, Sam Bennett gets in on the forecheck. Jesper Boquist is there to support, and then Bennett scoring on the second chance opportunity for them for his 17th goal of the season. Another pet adopted for the Broward Humane Society for them. But also another response for the Florida Panthers after giving up a shorthanded goal after Aaron Ekblad turned the puck over on the blue line and Tom Wilson scored. Alexander Barkov found a way on a breakaway after the puck was loose in the neutral zone, and then also muscling it out against Jacob Chychrun to score on the backhand. And then two third period goals within the first 6 minutes by Lars Eller and Nic Dowd. The Lars Eller goal came on a delayed penalty, and then Nic Dowd crashing the net. The Panthers also responded once again. Matthew Tkachuk scoring less than 2 minutes, a minute and 36 seconds later for his 19th goal of the season. Matthew Tkachuk on a 4-game goal streak now. And then the Panthers made a push constantly. And even when the Panthers were up on the 6-on-5 and down to multiple goals, they continued to push and push and push for them. And like we said, control in a good part of the game. The Panthers, they led the shots for them by a 13-9 margin after the first period, and gave up only 3 shots on goal in the first 2/3 of the third period. The Washington Capitals got 6 shots on goal the rest of the way, including some on the power play for them. And the Panthers penalty kill for them really set the tone. They took 2 penalties in the game, but one key for the Panthers that was there for them was winning the first draw for them, and getting the clear and then denying the zone entries for the Washington Capitals, which we saw multiple times in this one, and especially going into the third period for the Panthers. With 58 seconds left, 0 zone time for the Panthers as it was tied 2-2 going into the final frame. But for Washington, it was really untimely penalties, not penalties, breakaways for them. We saw Nate Schmidt stop a breakaway opportunity on Lars Eller, and then Sergei Bobrovsky stopping a breakaway on Tom Wilson with the shoulder in the second period and keeping this game close multiple times. But the depth came up for the Washington Capitals. Two double-digit goal scorers on that Washington Capitals team. We discussed this in the preview for this about how they are getting efforts up and down the lineup and how great they were when Alexander Ovechkin was out of the lineup for them. And the Panthers doing what they needed to do and intimidating them with the amount of hits that they got on them for them. And listen, this is more of a statement game for the Washington Capitals for them versus what the Florida Panthers were going into this game. The Capitals, after getting swept in the first round last year by the New York Rangers and Alexander Ovechkin having a down year, you knew that the front office for the Capitals had to do something in order to just make this chase more exciting. It can't just be a chase, but then a lot of losses for them, as now there's a lot of excitement for them. What's going on there? And getting the goaltending like they did for when they traded in the offseason for Logan Thompson, which Logan Thompson was outstanding in this one for the Caps. And we saw the constant stick in the lanes for the Panthers. We saw the forward supporting on the back check constantly taking away the middle of the ice for the opposition. So lots of things to like, and even though the box score says 6-3, and that's why I wanted to say early on about how this game was just a lot closer than what the final score indicated based on that. And really just untimely plays for the Panthers. And even Paul Maurice spoke post-game about the margins between these two teams, top of the East, where the Capitals only have lost one game in regulation since the start of the New Year, and it was a 1-goal loss on the road in Vancouver. So, and even though the Capitals aren't necessarily the best team in the extra frame or the shootout, they are getting and banking points and creating more of that cushion in the Metropolitan Division and the Eastern Conference, which they don't have to worry about 3-on-3 overtime or the shootout in the playoffs, which once again makes this team pretty dangerous for them, as they are outstanding at 5-on-5. We spoke about top 2 in goals against and goals for. The power play is a little bit of a struggle for them. I mean, not really a struggle. They're 11th in the league, but the Panthers did what they could in this one on special teams for them. And once again, we are still seeing signs of the Panthers still coming into form of what they did in the postseason last year, based on denying entries, and also once again getting in on their forecheck, which the expected goals numbers for the top 2 lines, both the top 2 lines for the Florida Panthers there, were over 80% for them. So lots to like, even though for the Panthers, and and lots of puck battles won, even when they were down. The eye test for this one is just one thing that your head is scratching for if you're watching this game live and you're thinking, man, one little thing goes more right for the Panthers, and this could possibly be a different outcome for them. And also the thing is, once again, the culture for the Panthers here, and just how it's not the team is not mailing it in, even when they're down multiple goals. That just continues to speak volumes for what the Panthers are doing here for them and their systems, and it continuing to run for Alexander Barkov and Sam Reinhart on that goal that Barkov connected to make it a 2-2 game at the time. Now him and Sam Reinhart have an 8-game road point streak in Washington for them, and also continuously getting close for them in this one. And although the Panthers controlled play, a lot of time was in the offensive zone. Got to give credit to Washington and their defense of just clearing the net front and preventing the second chances for the Panthers, as the Fenwick percentage for the Fenwick shots for the Capitals had 8, but then the shots went through as 8. So when the Capitals in the first period weren't getting their shots blocked, it was clearly into the net. It wasn't a lot of misses for them. So this is a group on the opposition that is a lot about quality over quantity, and that's a dangerous place to be when you look at a dangerous team to play against. When you see that they're able to consistently create space, and that teams over the entirety of the season haven't been able to do that for them, and then it resulting and then clamping it down into the later periods. And you got to give a lot of credit to Spencer Carberry, just the second year as the bench boss for the Washington Capitals here, on just how he's been able to get this team so locked in, and getting the playoffs last year with a negative goal differential, and then just continuing to win these close scoring games. This is a team that's, they're made for the playoffs, and the Panthers got a good shot at good response from a team that is hunting them, as the Panthers, like we mentioned so many times, and we are going to mention again for the rest of the regular season, they are going to continue to get the opposition's best. And this was a fun hockey game, regardless of the loss. You wish it were a better outcome for the Panthers, but you gotta kind of like what the Panthers did here, as far as continuing to get pucks deep and continue to win a good amount of their battles. But in segment number 2, we are going to discuss our 3 duds of the game, and we're going to discuss the moment where we knew the game was lost. We're going to discuss that more next here on the Locked On Florida Panthers podcast. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. And Super Bowl 59 is here. 1 game, 2 teams, endless possibilities. There's no better way to make every play more exciting than with FanDuel Sportsbook. Whether it's predicting the first touchdown, calling the MVP, or even betting on the coin toss, FanDuel makes it easy to get in on the action. With live betting all game long, you can adjust your bets as the game unfolds and feel the thrill from kickoff to the final whistle. Download the app and head to FanDuel.com to get started. Just bet $5, and if you win, you'll score $200 in bonus bets. That's FanDuel.com. Bet with FanDuel, official partner of Super Bowl 59. Segment number 2 here on this Wednesday, February 5th edition of the Locked On Florida Panthers podcast. Thank you once again for making the Locked On Florida Panthers podcast your first listen of the day here on a Wednesday. And as you guys notice, it's a Wednesday and there's no Winans Wednesday here. Jacob Winans is traveling for work, so he will be back here next week. So for this one, 3 duds of the game in the 6-3 loss with 2 empty net goals for the Washington Capitals. Want to continue to mention that for this matchup, but 3 duds for the Panthers here. The Kulikov and Mikkola pair. On the Dowd goal, there was a delayed penalty, but the middle of the ice was just wide open for Nic Dowd to get that goal, and once again, Bobrovsky at times not having a chance on some pucks for the amount of the rare moments that the Panthers did give up the middle of the ice there, which we're going to lead to the not only that, but the shorthanded goal for the Panthers that they also let up there. But not only did that pair not the best, but also on the puck that was bobbled in the neutral zone, Kulikov lost that battle, and then it ended up in the back of the net for the Panthers. So the pair overall for the Cats there, that is my 3rd dud of the game. The second dud, going back to the shorthanded goal, the untimely pass from Ekblad right from the blue line, instead of going right at the stick of Tom Wilson, which left Matthew Tkachuk on a little bit of an island there. Maybe it was best to just try to spin around and get it on the backhand to try to just get it to the left-hand side there of the offensive zone. So that ended up as a shorthanded goal for the Panthers there. Number 1 dud. I'm going to put Eetu Luostarinen here as the number 1 dud for the Panthers. Quite the pizza that he had when the Washington Capitals denied the entry for the Cats there, and then trying to get it to Evan Rodriguez on the complete opposite side of the blue line as they tried to regain the zone. their active stick for the Washington Capitals, and then that bobbled puck ended up in the back of the net for the Panthers at that time for them, and that resulted in just the game for them just turning, and just just an unfortunate situation for the Panthers as they were continuously trying to push for them. But that goal by Lars Eller that ended up with from the pizza from Eetu Luostarinen is actually not the moment where I knew the game was lost for the Panthers. The moment where I knew the game was lost was how quickly the Washington Capitals were able to respond after just less than 4 minutes after Nic Dowd scores on that delayed penalty for the Capitals. Not only that, and he bumps into Bobrovsky, but that was not the only time that he bumped into him. And the Panthers had every right to be frustrated with the officiating there for bumping into Bobrovsky. When the game was tied at 2, Bob freezes it, and so much time for Nic Dowd to just hit the brakes and not bump into Bobrovsky there. And Gus Forsling the first time had every right to tackle him and say, "Hey, you don't touch my goalie." The number one rule in hockey when you first put on the pads and you get on the ice, do not touch the goalie for that. And then it happening a second time, and then the Panthers ending up it having to go 4-on-4, which I mean eventually benefited for the Panthers getting a goal on 4-on-4 where Matthew Tkachuk scored on the quick entry, which Nate Schmidt quickly got it to Matthew Tkachuk, and then he scored beat Logan Thompson on the short side there, which Nate Schmidt had quite a few. Like we mentioned the breakaway stops that he had on Lars Eller that was outstanding, and not committing a penalty there, but also getting the primary assist to Matthew Tkachuk. But still, the fact that there was nothing called on Nic Dowd at first after he bumped into Bobrovsky the first time. I mean, listen, goaltenders need to be treated like quarterbacks. They're down. Not only are their pads down sometimes, but their heads are down, and then someone with plenty of time for them not hitting the brakes and making contact. I mean, that is for me a little head scratching why nothing was done about that for them. And also the fact that why I thought the game was lost there is when I heard the stat at the beginning of the second period with plus 32 in the third period for them. Wow. Incredible of how they're able to just put the opposition into a chokehold and also create the differences in wins and losses consistently for the Washington Capitals. And as I am typing, I'm gonna quickly look up the differences between them going into third periods tied or with the lead. When going into the third period when the game is tied, the Capitals going into that one, this game were 8-3-2. So more times than not, they are winning games when the games are tied going into the last frame. And also, here's another stat here: that when the opposition scores first for the Caps, 15-6-4. Wow, that incredible how they're not down for long. Whenever, and they're always in games for them, and also for the Washington Capitals, it's another great story after great story. We spoke about Charlie Lindgren, we spoke about Ovechkin, and once again, that Washington Capitals team, the coach has everybody playing for each other, and they gave the Panthers their best shot on the night. And the Panthers responded quite well. And this is a team that is actually going to be quite the force for their as they transition post Ovechkin, which he has a year under his contract after this year. But the Panthers, let's go over some stats for them. 12-2 in scoring chances, 11-3 in high danger. This is per natural stat trick for them. And as far as the game goes tonight, we spoke about how the top two lines truly set the tone for the Panthers. The Bennett, Tkachuk, Boquist, they were continuing to still win their battles and get their pucks on the sticks. Sam Bennett, 7 shots on goal. He's truly coming alive for the Panthers after what's happened in the 20 games of him having that drought. Once again, Sam Bennett has definitely come alive. Sam Reinhart, 4 shots on goal. Alexander Barkov, 3. Evan Rodriguez, 4 shots on goal for him. So that's another. Those are things that you could look at and say, okay, the Panthers, I think they're going to be quite fine. Evan Rodriguez has had 5 hits. Matthew Tkachuk, 5 hits. Etulis Duranen, Jesper Boquist. So those are guys who continuously got in on the action and continuously made the opposition know that they aren't going to lay down for anyone. And once again, I'm going to repeat myself on this one. The Panthers continued to push even with the 6-on-5. And unfortunately, Carter Verhaeghe breaking his stick on right before the first empty netter, the Panthers truly had a chance to send it to overtime. And I really, truly felt that it was going to, with how much the Panthers were pushing there. But hey, sometimes it's just not your night for them. But we're going to transition over to segment number 3, where we are going to discuss more about this game between the Panthers and the Capitals, and we're going to discuss more about the rumor mill for what the Panthers could be involved with the trade deadline. We're going to discuss that more next here on the Locked On Florida Panthers podcast. Today's episode is brought to you by Game Time. And Super Bowl 59 is here. And if you're looking tickets for the next big event, whether it's concert, comedy show, or a sports game, finding the right ticket at the right place can be a headache. But with Game Time Picks, it's never been easier. And let me tell you how it works. With Game Time Picks, the app does all the hard work for you. It creates the best deals so you don't have to waste time searching for endless ticket listings. The best part, you're covered with Game Time's lowest price guarantee. And if you find a better deal somewhere else, they'll refund 110% of the difference. Plus, your tickets are guaranteed to be delivered on time with easy cancellation options if something comes up. Take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONHL for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account, redeem code LOCKEDON NHL for $20 off. Download Game Time today. Last minute tickets, lowest price, guaranteed. Third and final segment here on this Wednesday, February 5th edition of the Locked On Florida Panthers podcast. Thank you once again for making the Locked On Florida Panthers podcast your first listen of the day here on a Wednesday. And as of right now, just looking at the score between the Leafs and the Calgary Flames, they are winning by a score of 4-2 with 18:21 left in the third period. So it looks like that the Leafs are going to crawl back to 1 point back of the Atlantic Division lead, which the Panthers still currently have, but the Leafs have 2 games in hand for them. But once again, Washington, a team that's pretty good 5-on-5, outstanding 5-on-5, and just because there was control of the game, doesn't mean that for the Capitals that it's just not a guarantee that if these guys were to meet in like an Eastern Conference final, that it's just like, okay, the Panthers can just turn it on. This Washington Capitals team has the recipe to make a long run. Thankfully for the Panthers, they're on the opposite side of the bracket, so they go through the gauntlet there of Carolina, who has pretty good goaltending for them when Pyotr Kochetkov is healthy. Jacob Markstrom, when he's healthy, is going to be another one. Which that the Metropolitan side of things, I think might be the harder side. Which maybe the Panthers have the easier side of things for the playoff bracket. But hey, this is why you play the games, right? So that's another thing for them. As once again, they get the quality over quantity based on every stat analytics that you're seeing is like, wow, this is sustainable for the Caps. And Jesper Boquist spoke about it after the game. They capitalized on their chances. Paul Maurice spoke about how it's the margin for error with two teams. He said, other than two guys having bad games, we had a great night. Close quote. So the coach doesn't seem to be worried about the Panthers here after this one, after lots of control up and down between the 60 minutes for them. But there's some news based on the rumor mill for the Panthers. The fourth period, David Pagnotta of the fourth period discussed more about more guys who could be linked to the Florida Panthers here. And this, although we've spoken about multiple times about right-handed shots, how that's the priority for the Panthers, two names have surfaced, and those are forwards for the Panthers. Two depth forwards, guys who could play in the middle six for the Panthers if they do end up getting traded here. So the first one is Ryan Donato, Harvard hockey alum, 15 goals in 50 games, 15 assists, making $2 million, 30 games of playoff experience. We mentioned Chicago has no retention slots for them, and this is a route the Panthers, if they go this route, do they get a third team involved in order for them to take the 50% there? It brings more scoring depth, and we've seen at times go cold for them, but not recently. So the thing about Ryan Donato is that he could play both the center and the wing. So if you think that the matchups for Mackie Samoskevich for him he's not ready for them, you could still put him down in the lineup, and you could put Ryan Donato there for those opportunities there in the middle six for them if you do end up making that trade. This one has been not necessarily rumored to the Panthers, but this player has been rumored to get traded at the deadline multiple times over this season, and that's Jake Evans for the Montreal Canadiens. He spent his entire career with the Habs, making $1.7 million this year, and the Habs have come back to earth a little bit after getting close to the wild card race, but they've made it this far, and this is a step in the right direction for them. And listen, when you don't have that much depth already on your roster, and you have a few major injuries already, that is going to be hard for a team to still maintain themselves in the race. Which there's injuries to Caden Gooley, and then former Panther prospect Emil Heineman, which he got injured with a car hitting him as a pedestrian. So, what's the best for Emil Heineman, for former Panther prospect there? Losers of 3 straight, and now refreshing everything with the wild card race for them. Now it's not 6 or 7 teams separated by a few points. Now they're starting to create a little bit of separation for them in the Eastern Conference. Now it's like 3 teams separated by 4 or 5 points there. So still time to determine, but Montreal still is progressing for them. Jakub Dobich has lost his last 2 starts, but still 5-1-1 in his career to start for them. And the Habs, they have 1 retention slot left. Jake Evans makes 1.7, 11 goals from the Notre Dame hockey alum, and 3 goals away from his career high. And it's a right-handed shot forward for him. So Sam Reinhart, Evan Rodriguez, and Mackie Samoskevich are your only right-handed shot forwards on the roster for them. And although, once again, the priority is for the Panthers to get defense, maybe this is a move that if the Habs do retain 50%, that they could still go after the depth defenseman for them. And when we're seeing the lack of scoring from the bottom 6 for them, this could be probably a good, decent addition for the Panthers. I mean, even though Kyle Okposo never scored a single goal in his career as a Florida Panther, we saw how he was at the tops of the scoring for the Buffalo Sabres at the time of the trade. But really, when it comes to the Panthers system and their style of hockey, in order to try to win a championship, we know that it's defense first, tight gaps, low scoring, forechecking, and then the superstars coming through, which we saw so many of these 3-2 games, 2-1 for them. And really that those are the games that you consistently want to be in, which we saw over the last few weeks that the Panthers have gone back to playing some of those games. And once again, on a night like tonight, you are pretty not necessarily. I don't want to say pleased, but it's I would say it's an adequate performance for the Panthers. Even though you see 0 points on the night for them, so you see a little bit of signs that things are still coming back to form for the Panthers, even though it's January. And hey, it's a when you see 2 weeks off of actual hockey coming up for them as far as their club team, you know that you're approaching a little bit of a finish line as far as that. So the Panthers want to end with a little bit of a bang here as the Panthers go into St. Louis, which Matthew Tkachuk is on a 4-game goal streak, and last time he was in St. Louis, a natural hat trick for him, and he's going back to his hometown in a place that he celebrated the Stanley Cup. So that's another thing to be excited for Matthew Tkachuk, going back to his hometown there and continue the road trip right before he meets his brother on Saturday for another matchup. He's going to meet his brother on Saturday against the Ottawa Senators, who lost to the Tampa Bay Lightning, who are doing a little bit of a big trip down to Florida as they lost tonight in Tampa Bay. They'll actually play the Lightning again on Thursday and then make the trip to Sunrise. So that they'll meet and then they'll be teammates shortly enough for them. So that's pretty cool for the two brothers, that they will get their chance. And he spoke about it with NHL Network. It's something that they dreamt about since they were kids. So happy for them that they're getting this opportunity. But that's going to wrap this episode of the Locked On Florida Panthers podcast. On tomorrow's edition of the show, we are going to preview Thursday night's game between the Florida Panthers and the St. Louis Blues from the Enterprise Center. And we are going to continue the discussion of the state of South Florida hockey, as there is expected to be a big announcement coming in the next day. What is that announcement going to be? We'll discuss that more next on the next episode of the Locked On Florida Panthers podcast. But in the meantime, if you like what you're hearing, please subscribe to the podcast to be notified every single time the Locked On Florida Panthers podcast jumps into your podcast feed. Don't forget to also subscribe to the other shows on the Locked On NHL Network, including Locked On NHL, Locked On Fantasy Hockey, Flip Livingstone and Stu Roden, and Locked On NHL Prospects. Thank you once again for making the Locked On Florida Panthers podcast your first listen of the day. So I'm Armando Velez, signing off. And you've been listening to Locked On Florida Panthers podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, where it's your team every day.